Today, I am thrilled to be joined by two of my esteemed colleagues and industry veterans, Jonathan Giroir, Senior Marketing Director, Developer Toolkits, and Marco Salino, Product Manager, Data Access Toolkits. The floor is yours. Take it away, Jonathan.
All right. Well, thank you, Charisse, and thank you everyone for for joining us today for our annual product update here virtually. And it's nice to see some familiar faces. So, hey, James and Jamie and Jennifer, and then some new faces as well. So, thanks for joining us. We will be talking about what we delivered over the last calendar year in terms of feature functionality for all of our Hoops toolkits. A lot has gone into there. Marco is going to earn that beer that he's going to enjoy after this session for sure, because a lot has gone in. And then also we'll be talking about our roadmap for 2025. So certain things to look forward to and as well beyond. And we do anticipate having some time for Q&A. So please put those in the Q&A tab at the end of this session, and we'd be happy to answer those. But first, for those who might be new, who is TechSoft 3D? Well, we're the premier provider of 3D engineering technology, specifically software components for building 3D engineering applications for CAD, CAM, building and construction, and a number of other industries. We're headquartered here in Bend, Oregon, but we also have offices throughout the world and continue to grow year by year, trying to support you and your needs specifically for 3D engineering. Talking about growing, before we kind of dig into our toolkit side of things, I did want to share a little bit of news with what's going on at TechSoft over the last year. So you may have seen in the news that we continue to acquire technology. So in past years, we were acquiring simulation technology and graphics technology, but early last year, in May and June, we acquired two end user companies and added them to our portfolio of end user products. So that would be Theorem and then the Spinfire brand from Actify. These products are focused on enterprise visualization, data translation, and XR. They are end user products. So why am I actually telling you about these? Well, it does have great value for those who are using our toolkits because we get to use our toolkits. Both of these companies were customers of TechSoft 3D and using different parts of our technology stack. So we get to experience firsthand what it means to be a partner of TechSoft 3D. It also gets us closer to the end users. And so a lot of times we're talking with software developers, but we're not out there in industry actually working with end users. And so it's great to be able to be that connected to how our technology is being used. And then lastly, it's just a larger team. So we have the ability to support more people in more regions, and a lot of expertise is coming from data translation as well as visualization. And so we're really excited to have that talent here in-house. But just that's just a bit of news, kind of what's happened in the market. But then let's talk a bit about what it is we do here, and that's fuel innovation. And so we're excited to see that XR visualization or that data translation and migration. We're excited to see you use our tools to make software that makes safer cars or more economical buildings, ones that are energy conscious or green. And so that really excites us to see what you do with our technology. And we have a lot of new features here that help fuel that innovation. And so that is our mission here, is to fuel innovation with this technology. And we do that a number of different ways. Our portfolio is quite large. We're going to be focusing on about half of it today. But really any different stage of the workflow that you're trying to address, or whatever workflow you have for 3D engineering, we try to provide components for that, be it importing data like CAD and CAE data, visualizing it, desktop, mobile, XR, web, specific tools for advanced rendering and photorealistic rendering, and then also specific tools for even CAE rendering specific to that industry. We have a number of internal and external tools that we resell. So I noticed some people here from Siemens. So we resell the Parasolid modeling kernel, the best in the industry for CAD, CAM engineering modeling. Also, we have simulation tools, and of course, getting that data out now that you've worked with it, being able to publish it to 3D PDFs, HTML, standard CAD formats. So a lot of tools. We're going to be focusing on the Hoops product line today, but no matter what your need is, we'd love to be a solutions provider to you. So just a bit about what's going on at TechSoft, who we are, what it is we do. I'm going to hand it over to Marco now, who's our product manager for our Hoops product line, and he's going to talk about where we've been and where we're going. Marco, what do you have to share with us today?
So thank you, Jonathan. Yes, we're gonna talk about what the Hoops Toolkit accomplished and delivered in 2024, and of course what we're planning for the current year. Just a note, we have a lot to cover and only 1 hour, so this is going to be kind of a highlight of some of the work that we have done and we are planning to do, and it is not an exhaustive list. So before diving into feature and capabilities, though, I would like to take a moment to talk about our software quality and responsiveness, which is paramount as always. We know how important it is for everyone. So we can proudly say now that we have both reduced the number of bugs that were reported to us by 11%, while at the same time increasing the number of bugs we managed to fix to 77%. This is a significant improvement from the 50% mark that we had just 2 years ago. We're also very conscious about security. We foster a culture of continuously improving our security practices. Our policies are also public, so you can review them. But we carry out regular reviews of these policies so that we can adapt them to any evolving threats and technology. We make sure that these policies are aligned with the industry standards and best practices, and we learn from security incidents so that we can turn them into opportunities for improvement. So let's now begin reviewing what we released in 2024 with our products, and we'll start with the data. So Oops Exchange, if you don't know it, it's our offering for data access. It's important to point out that data access is at the core of Exchange. It is not simple translation. It's quite important to make the difference. So with Exchange, you can access the data from over 30 CAD formats performantly without depending on any of these CAD systems. So you don't need any license for these softwares. You just need Exchange. You can access BREPs, tessellation, PMI, metadata, all with very high fidelity, and you can transfer what you need into your own data structures, without losing details. Of course, you can also use Exchange for translating between formats, as you can export to over a dozen formats. And Exchange can also perform some more advanced operations if you're interested. I know some examples could be geometry adaptation, point projections, and clash detection. So 2 exciting projects we completed last year are T-junctions removal and the incremental loading of monolithic JT files. Starting with the junctions, so what are the junctions? These are some anomalies that occur when a vertex joining 2 mesh elements falls in the middle of the edge of another element, forming a T, as you can see in the diagram here in the slide. So this doesn't necessarily cause an issue, but it can produce some tears, as you can see in the thumbnail and in the mesh, and this could generate some artifacts that might not be acceptable for very high-end visualization or computational operations. Here we are showing in this clip, we're using Polygonica to kind of highlight where the T-junctions are happening in a model. So what we have done is we haven't changed the standard visualization tessellation algorithm. That's unchanged. What we did is we introduced an optional post-processing step that will remove T-junctions. And we just saw in the clip here how he managed to remove the T-junctions previously highlighted. It is a fast and effective operation, but it is limited to removing T-junctions, so it's not going to work on other type of anomalies, and it doesn't guarantee, for example, that the mesh is going to be watertight. So the incremental loading of monolithic JT files is an extension of what we could already do for JT assemblies. Basically, as you can see from the clip, when you access a file, we present you the model tree, so you can decide which part of the data to load and how to really tailor the data loading to your workflow, make it more efficient, and optimize it for different models and different applications. We've also worked on extending the number of properties that we can read and extract from several CAD formats. For CATIA V5 and X, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Inventor, and Creo, we are now giving access to more physical properties for isotropic materials. The type of properties we're talking about are the likes of Young modulus, shear modulus, the Poisson coefficient, thermal expansion coefficient, tensile strength. The full list is in our documentation, which you can refer to. These are very useful, of course, in analysis and simulation context, and now can be passed on directly to application working in these domains, just streamlining the data path. For SolidWorks files, we can now read more sheet metal bending specific properties, such as fixed phase, grind direction, links to bends, and geometry. Now, moving to formats and platforms, beside the usual updates of all the supported file formats, I'd like to mention that we updated our step reader and writer with support for the AP242 edition 2 and 3. So we now officially support importing and exporting files to these versions, but we have not yet introduced any specific new classes. So these capabilities, it's already available as experimental and should become general access in the 2025.3.0 release, which is due in a week or two. Talking about platforms, we extended the number of readers that are available under iOS, and we also added support for Mac Catalyst. Now, we talked about data access, so we can now have a glance of what we did for data publish. So Hoops Publish is our solution for generating 3D PDFs and for publishing to the web different type of data from within your applications. Publish, it's all about aggregating different type of data. This could be 3D models, metadata, pictures, tables, and many more, so that you can create rich documents for viewing and collaboration. So Oops Publish is a very robust and mature product. And in 2024, we of course continued fixing stability issues, CVEs, but also we collaborated with Adobe to improve the PDF reader that it utilizes. So now moving to our graphic products, we can start with Oops Communicator. For those of you who might not know it, Oops Communicator is our solution for building advanced and powerful 3D engineering web applications. It is optimized to run in all major browsers, and it comes out of the box with all the major engineering operators: cut in plane, explode, of course, zoom and pan, and select and highlight, and so forth. These operators are extensible. You can also write your own. It's really a very, very versatile tool. It is also a very high-performing product. It can work with both monolithic files, but also supports streamings, and supports both client and server-side rendering. So which makes it a perfect choice for using it both with high and low power devices. So you could use it for with laptops with decent GPUs and resources, but also on low power devices like tablets that you might be using to carry out an inspection on a construction site. It's important to note that you can switch between client and server-side rendering just by changing a line of code. That's all. You don't need to do any significant rewriting of your application. So a focus of 2024 was to make sure that Oops Communicator stays up to date with the most modern web development standards and best practices. So the first project we completed was to make Communicator compatible with the ESM framework. So the main benefit of this is that we increase its modularity. So you can now load just the components that you need. You can transfer a smaller amount of data, and so you're reducing your load times, and also it allows you to write simpler code for your application. Thanks to the ESM framework compatibility, Communicator can now also be used to create single-page web applications where you can change the context without having to reload the whole app. For example, a very good example is you can load and unload the viewer when it's needed, so you can make a much more efficient use of your resources. And another useful and very cool capability we introduced was support for multiple canvases. You can see running here in the animation. So by using multiple canvases, it is now possible to create web application with multiple and independent camera views of the same model. This is now much more efficient because you can use a single instance of the app, and the model data is also shared across all the canvases, so you don't have duplication of data in memory. All rendering attributes are set per view, while the operators are working globally. Now, we can now move to our desktop and mobile product for graphics, Hoops Visualize. It is our solution for native 3D engineering application. It is the leading 3D engine for native application. It's used in a myriad of engineering apps and in all sorts of domains. It is focused on for engineering. It comes with all the operators you may need out of the box. They're ready to use. You've got cutting plane, zoom, pan, rotate, selection and lighting as well, similar to Communicator. You can extend those if you need as well. It is also a high-performance product. It works very well both with large monolithic scenes made up with lots of triangles, but also with assemblies which are made up of a vast number of smaller and simpler parts. So this is quite important because usually graphic engines are optimized for either one of these two use cases, while Visualize works very well for both. So in addition to maintain Visualize high level of quality and security, we also introduce some cool new capabilities. The first I want to talk about is the cellular volume rendering. This is a major accomplishment for the Visualize team because we think it's gonna help us opening and help you as well opening many more opportunities. So Visualize 3DF now supports the rendering of cellular volume as an experimental feature, which means that it is now possible to convert internal geometric representations into the visualized data structure. This is done in the same process in which shells, edges, and vertices are currently added to the visualized database. And once in the database, as you can see from the clip that's running here, displaying here, you can operate on these cellular volume elements using the same operators that now we can already use on other geometric entities. Like you can use cutting plane, selection, highlighting, pretty much all the standard operators. We also try to satisfy as many feature requests as we can, both introducing new capabilities and enhancing existing ones. One example is the introduction of an API to insert point cloud data into the Visualize out-of-core database. Previously, this was already possible, but it relied on a Windows executable. So last year, we enabled to programmatically add this data to the outer core. This means that the process is now it's more streamlined and also will allow us to make it available for other platforms such as Linux and Mac, as you don't have to use a Windows executable. This executable, though, it's still available. So if you're using it and if you want to keep using it, there's no worries. You don't have to move to the new API. This is just an additional way to work with our point cloud. We also did some work on performance, as we always try to do. Specifically, we improved the efficiency of our memory management and segment display list systems in some specific scenarios where VRAM limitations can have an impact or play a factor at least. And last but not least, we have Hoops Luminate. Hoops Luminate is our offering for high-end visualization. It is a multi-thread Unicode engine. It is a single API that integrates a core and an advanced real-time rendering module, as well as a pattern array tracer for photorealistic rendering. So Luminate is designed to maximize both the customization of the rendering pipeline, but also for high-quality rendering. It comes with its own set of materials. They're called realistic materials because they are based on actual physical properties. And there's a vast library that's included with Luminate, but you can also customize them very, very easily. Luminate is a very mature and reliable product, similar story to Hoops Publish. So in 2024, we worked to keep this high level of quality and robustness, but we also try to fulfill a few feature requests and added support for the Mac ARM platform. Now, let's look at what's going on this year. We're going to start with Exchange. We'll keep the same flow. We can begin with our formats update plan. As every year, we're going to work very hard to make sure that Exchange will let you handle the latest version of the formats as quickly as we can. The plan is here. It's pretty much self-explanatory, and it is in line with our usual cadence. Moving to new features and capabilities, there's a few projects that we have lined up for the 2025 releases, some smaller, some larger. So I want to start with a very cool project that we have been working on together with NVIDIA. which is a new USD writer. USD is the format used by high-end visualization products and platforms such as NVIDIA Omniverse, of course, Unreal Engine and Unity. But its usage, it's also been growing amongst engineering applications, so for more professional use that's just beyond visualization. We hope to release this new USD writer as an experimental capability within the next couple of months, so stay tuned for announcements. We've also have a number of improvements planned for the GLTF format. Some example could be adding support for Draco compression, also for import and exporting wireframe, and also handle phase attributes. We're going to clean some of the remaining GLTF issues and improve its performance as well. We are going to add support for Creo assembly layers. Exchange can already read layers at part level, so we're just going to extend the support for assemblies. And shifting to the ASC domain, we're also updating our AFC supported version to 4.3. ASC 4.3 delivers quite a bit of improvements for infrastructure data and for infrastructure and civil engineering. Basically expands the AFC scope beyond this initial and more traditional scope of buildings and architecture. It now includes classes for bridges, roads, railways, ports, waterways, and some more specific utilities, linear assets, and so forth. This will be available as an experimental capability in Exchange 2025.3, so in about a week or two. Now, we've also been working on our DGN reader. This has been already available as an experimental feature for a couple of releases now. As you can see from the clip that's playing, we've been adding support for more geometry types and attributes. An example could be the type 106 parametric data, reference files, and meshes. You can see in the video, we're running Bentley View and Demo Viewer with the same model. The fidelity is already quite good. We've got meshes here, we've got some B-reps, and it's going well, but it will stay as an experimental feature for a while longer. We hope to release it as GA by the end of the summer, and once we are satisfied that we can read correctly a sufficient number of geometry and data types. So one major new initiative for this year is about computational tessellation. Exchange can already produce accurate tessellation, but we want to improve this capability significantly, both in terms of speed and quality. So the goal is to be able to generate a tessellation that is accurate enough so that it can be used for remeshing and for both high-end visualization and computational applications. In order to do so, we decided to take a step back and rethink our current implementation. We're not going to do a large number of fixes. We want to start from the ground. So the plan is to introduce a new algorithm that will produce a tessellation that is watertight, provides zero phase failure. It gives access to double precision through the API, and also will find an optimal balance between mesh quality and density. And of course, the generation of these meshes from B-reps needs to be as fast as possible. So we can spend a minute or two talking about performance. We all know the story. The data is rapidly growing in size and complexity, and it's happening in pretty much all domains. We know that is paramount to be able to handle this data performantly to be able to deliver competing application. So this year we want to focus on ways to better leverage the capabilities of modern hardware. For example, multiple cores and threads of modern CPUs. So one specific topic we will investigate is using multiprocessing to accelerate the reading of massive assemblies. We see assemblies made up of hundreds of thousands of parts. The parts can be small or large, and we think that it is possible to efficiently use multiprocessing to read these assemblies parts in parallel and then bring them together to complete the operation faster than we can now. So we're not looking at using multi-threading for reading individual parts. That's important. We're going to look at multiprocessing for reading assemblies. Now, this could result in some changes in the product, but it might also result in a set of samples or best practices so that we can show how these techniques can be implemented effectively in an application. We also think that some specific operations, more advanced operations such as point projection, tessellation, calculation, geometry adaptation, we think that those could be multi-threaded with tangible benefits. But here as well, we want to be laser focused on the operation that will yield the best results and add the more value. So we're going to evaluate what are the possibility and focus on the one that will bring the more benefits on the table. Now we have here a timeline, a proposed timeline for our features. It is our current plan, but plan can change. So please, you can keep an eye on our public roadmap pages for any updates. So we can now move to our web product, to Communicator. We can continue talking about performance, same flow, following the flow. Web apps also need to be able to handle this growing data size and complexity. Now, Communicator, it's already a very performant product, but we want to be proactive and make sure we can keep our performance at least on par with this trend of growing data. So for this year, we identified time to screen as the area where we can deliver more improvements in value. So we support so many different use cases and workflows that we will need to work on several ways to achieve faster time to screen for all the different scenarios. So far, we identified 3 projects that we think will be quite impactful. The first is about data loading. Communicator is already quite smart in how it loads the data, but we think we can do even better. So we look, for example, at ways to avoid loading small parts where they might not be relevant in a view. The rest of the parts, when they're compared to huge parts, maybe you don't need to see or load nuts and bolts. We'll look also at incremental geometry loading, use of bounding boxes for the geometry that is not critical for a scene or a view. Ideally, we want to provide with options so that you can choose how to load the data to suit best your use case and scenarios. We're also going to work on introducing a level of detail management system. We want to give you some ways to choose from different meshes to represent the body. For example, the same part, you may already have a coarse, a normal, and a fine detail mesh to represent them. So we want to give you ways to pick the one that's most suitable for the context, and so you can only load the one that makes more sense. This will be based on some conditions or rules like zoom level, or maybe it could be data driven somehow. So we're not talking of creation of meshes on the fly or decimation or simplification on the client. We are going to use existing meshes. So the third project that we are considering, it's the introduction of the Draco algorithm to compress the tessellation in the stream cache file format. So this way, you'll be more efficient in transferring data pretty much in all use cases. We'll also continue to work on making Communicator a more modern, easy to use, and to be kept up to date. So we're planning to introduce NPM packages to simplify delivery. Initially, we are going to have the packages on DevZone for manual download, and possibly in a second phase, we're going to evaluate if we can leverage a package manager like NPM. We're also going to simplify the structure and some of the classes of our APIs so that we can be closer to standards and best practices. We want to introduce a new set of concepts like material, node classes, accessor IDs, and also want to reduce the number of methods for some classes like the model class. Our goal is to share a draft of the proposed changes, a new structure for feedback as soon as possible, and no changes will be introduced before 2026.1.0, so the next major release in 2026. So during this year, we may introduce new concepts as experimental for feedback and evaluation, but nothing will be removed. But also in the 2026 releases, we will add new classes or changes, and we'll deprecate existing ones or legacy ones, but we're not going to remove anything. We're going to give you plenty of time to digest and also adjust to any changes. And last, but definitely not least, We've also been working on a new UI. So why did we want to write a new UI? Well, the main driver is to make sure that the UI customization is super easy. So if you like our UI, you can take it and make it yours without any complication, and you can change it by using standard technologies and methods like HTML and CSS. Nothing complicated, so you don't have to spend time in doing something that needs to be simple. We want to help also to bring your application to market as quickly as possible. We know how important it is, and also with a modern and fresher look and feel. So if you want to use UI, if you don't want to use UI, sorry, there's no problem. You can use your own. Our UI is going to be framework agnostic, and even our demo app is going to be built on React, but you don't have to use that. And so what we're going to deliver, it's a new UI kit with web components, a new HTML template, and also a refreshed demo app that you can see here in the video. You can see how easy it is to change it using standard practices. And also the demo app will show you some cool features. For example, how you could import a local model or a model from a server repository, and it comes with a dark mode that is pretty cool and pretty much needed in any applications right now. Okay, so next project to be excited about is custom shaders. We have been asked about custom shader by several partners now for a while, so we decided to include it into our 2025 plan. So what we want to achieve here is to enable engineering and workflow specific visualization of the data. So we plan to achieve this by giving you access to arbitrary attributes in the shader from within the app, so that you can perform specific shading for whatever workflow you are working with. Some of these workflows that we are considering while studying this project are, for example, showing results of simulations like heat maps, slope maps, deformation maps, you name it. Also, the simulation of rich maps for robotic application, being able to map volume data on cutting planes so that you can give a visual response of volume data from your web app. But also, we want to enable you to create shaders that are specific for materials, so that this can be rendered more realistically and give you more control on how they are displayed. While working on this project, we are exploring languages that we maybe give us the chance to share shaders in the future between products. And we also want to be future-proof in terms of technologies, especially web graphic technologies. Now, to conclude this section, we want Communicator to really become the front end for as many complex applications on the web. So we want this application to be powerful. We know the need is there to go beyond simple viewing. So we are working on some feature requests to improve the web viewer capabilities. An example would be being able to set a different draw mode for each body in a scene. Well, now the draw mode is just one for the whole scene. We also want the web viewer to work better with dimensions and PMI. So we're going to work to let you select and delete dimensions from the web viewer. It also honor the auto flip request for PMIs when they're in the CAD data, but also when they're applied to markups added by Hoops Communicator. There's also two major updates in terms of technologies. We have Linux R, which is planned for April, so it's very imminent. And we're also going to update the Node.js version that's used in the servers. Now, at the same time, we most likely will be removing Node.js from the customer package. We will list it as a dependency and make it very easy to find so that you can download it. But this will give us a chance to make sure you are using the most up-to-date and secure version of Node when you're evaluating our technologies. Same deal as for Exchange. This is our current plan. Please refer to the public roadmap page for any changes. Moving to our desktop product, Visualize. So Visualize, as I mentioned in the introduction before, it is a leading 3D engineering graphic engine, and we want to maintain its leading position for many more years to come. And so we identified some work that we think will allow to do so. So the first step will be working on a unified shader library. Having a unified shader library will put us in a position to complete any work on shaders way more efficiently and quickly, and also to reuse shaders across drivers, including custom shaders. This means that we will be able to introduce new graphic capabilities also a lot quicker, and should also help us achieve a closer look and feel of the shaders in different drivers. So we are considering internal shader languages like SPIRV, Cross, and Slang. This should allow us to align the shaders both across drivers and hopefully also across products. So the second phase of the project will be investigating how we can update the visualize rendering pipeline. So we think this is the right step to put visualize in a better position to significantly gain more benefits from new hardware and new architectures. As an example, it could open up the use of geometry and compute shaders, and would also make it easier for us to consider introducing new drivers. And new drivers could deliver added value to application, both in performance, graphic quality, and more. Performance is also important for visualize. It is not going to escape from the growing trend of ever larger and more complex models. But in light of what I just said, we decided to focus on improving performance this year in areas that are not tied closely with shaders and the rendering pipeline. We feel we'll be in a much better position to improve shading and rendering related areas after the graphic update project is completed, or at least in a more advanced stage. So for this year, we identified the time to first draw as an area where we can have an immediate impact. And to achieve that, we're thinking of working on improving the geometry instancing so that we can reduce the segment display list size. We might look at analyzing the scene on the fly, reducing memory consumption of some of our systems, like the highlight system, but also implementing better concurrency. And as we try to listen to our partners and satisfy requests, we're also going to work on some new capabilities and feature requests. So first of all, we're going to pour cellular volumes to so as I said before, this capability is now in 3DF. That's because some of the partners that were requesting this capability are still using the older version of Visualize, but we want to make sure that the latest and greatest also can avail of this new capability. So we're also going to clean it up a little bit, and we think we can kind of improve a little bit both in quality, in the rendering quality, and in performance. And we also want to make it general access as soon as possible in both versions. So we are going to prioritize this. There's also some specific features that were in 3DF, but they were not, let's say, replicated in HPS when the new version came out. That was mostly done on purpose because there are new methods. But we know that there are some partners that are porting the application to HPS, or they're building new products based on HPS, and they still feel that they need some of these 3DF features. So we're also going to work importing these specific capabilities to HPS. Talking about porting, similarly, we're going to port the out-of-core API to Linux and Mac, while we're also trying to plan to improve our point clouds by adding support for intensity and RGB, and possibly also a couple of new formats like .e57 and .las. We're also going to work on a few updates of the supported formats and platforms. You can see here in the slide, LinuxR, .NET 8, .NET MAUI, the new graphic framework, Visual Studio 2022, also Qt, and SketchUp, and the DWG libraries will be updated to the latest versions. Same deal as the other products. This is our current plan for feature releases for Visualize, but check our public roadmap pages. So, and to conclude, we have Hoops Luminate. So what's going to happen to Luminate in 2025? We'll keep working, of course, on keeping it as safe and robust as it already is. But there's a couple of projects we want to also try to work on. So you may remember that when we launched Luminate in the past, we were focusing on showing how you could integrate the pattern ray tracer with Visualize, also other graphic engines, of course, so that you could add photorealistic rendering within your application. We always knew, though, that really the high quality real-time rendering is what will deliver most value. But path tracing and ray tracing was the natural first step for us to work on this product after its acquisition. So this year we want to investigate if there are ways for us to improve the interaction between Visualize and Luminate, both by showing how the data transfer can happen faster, but also making advanced real-time rendering more suitable for application in our domains. So currently, the advanced real-time rendering module, it provides very high quality at fast frame rates. It uses some advanced rendering techniques like global illumination, reflection probes, light baking, but it's kind of more tailored to larger outdoor scenes. It has kind of a planet scale and extreme vegetation tools, which are probably not really suitable for indoor scenes in manufacturing or also in AC. So what we want to do is we want to try and clean the pipeline from these capabilities and make it leaner and more efficient for our more traditional workflows. At the same time, we're actually working on this as we speak, at updating the Embry and the Intel Open Image Denosers for better quality of the photorealistic images. And we're also investigating if we can improve our metal implementation. And with this, I'm thinking concluding my section. So Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Marco, you had a lot and you definitely earned that beer. It's time in Ireland where you're calling in from, right? So that's
Could be wine, but yes.
completely appropriate. Yeah, thanks for all of that. I'm excited for a couple things. So that communicator UI rework is going to be huge, right? So I've been battling with that for a while. So it's great to see that. And then also to see DGN file format support in full later this year. We know there's a lot of people looking for that. Before we go to question and answer, there's just a few other things that I was hoping to let you guys know about, just give you a little preview of the future from a marketing side of things. You notice at the very beginning, we have a lot of products and a lot of toolkits, and we're trying to just simplify that. We're not changing anything from an engineering standpoint, but we are trying to consolidate our brands. And so you will see in the second half of this year a slight change in the way we're naming our products. So just wanted to give you a quick preview of that. First, when it comes to Hoops Exchange and Hoops Publish, they have always been bundled together and distributed as one package. So Hoops Exchange being for CAD and AEC import, Hoops Publish now publishing that. They're just going to be rolled into Hoops Exchange. So we'll have one product for all your data access needs called Hoops Exchange. And then on the visualization side of things as well, we have 3 visualization engines. We got Hoops Visualize for desktop graphics. Our web graphics is Hoops Communicator. And then Marco just finished with our photorealistic graphics using Hoops Luminate. Those also will be consolidated into a brand Hoops Visualize. There will be a flavor of that for web, a flavor of that for desktop as well. You can still get Hoops Luminate as a standalone package if you are licensing that. But we are just trying to make it simpler for you. If you need data, it's Hoops Exchange. If you need graphics, it's Hoops Visualize. And in future years, you continue to see those products getting closer and closer together. Marco was talking about shaders, trying to have a unified language for that, but this is the first step. So it does join our much larger Hoops product portfolio now. So we talked about those 2. We also have a set of simulation and analysis SDKs that were formerly known as our Citron brand of products. All of that's coming underneath Hoops, and you'll see more collaboration with that team and that product. For instance, we're looking at watertight. You saw today watertight tessellation. So that's really important for simulation. And as we see the industry focusing on simulation and analysis across multiple different markets, that's becoming more and more important. So not to scare you, just know that later this year, you'll see a slight change, and we'll be communicating that extensively in the coming months, but just wanted to give you a quick preview of that. But more importantly, we'd love to get together with you in person. So we do have some opportunities for that coming up. We will be at Wind Europe next week, as well as the NAFEMS World Conference next month. Those are our two conferences focused on simulation. Not sure if you're going to that, but if you are, we would love to sit down with you. But more importantly, we have our Hoops Summit that will be in our hometown of Lyon, France. Not mine. We're here in Bend, Oregon, but in Lyon, we have our main development office. So a big event there. It's actually going to be 2 days long now. So we'll be talking about some exciting new technology, particularly with a focus on AI, very topical right now, and a set of tools that we are developing to accelerate AI workflows. So this is a new product, a new set of feature functionality from TechSoft. You're hearing about it first time here, very possibly. We're going to be showcasing that when we're together in France. We'll be hearing from our partners and seeing partner presentations. Our product team will be there presenting as well and talking about where the industry is going and how we're supporting that. But then day 2 will be a developer day at our office. So really an office open house for you to come and sit with our product team, our engineering team, and our consulting team to work through your problems, to get training, to create prototypes, to ask questions. So we really encourage you, if you are thinking about coming, please sign up now. We'd love to have the opportunity to host you in our hometown there, Lyon, France. So that, I think, is it. I'm going to hand it back over to Charisse now to kind of finish us up with some Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Marco and Jonathan, for all of that wonderful information. We did have a few questions come in during the presentation, so I'll go ahead and read them out for us. First one, I'd like to know about the roadmap for PBR materials improvement.
Sure. So PBRs, again, it depends on different products. They're supported by Communicator and Visualize. So we have no immediate plans. In Visualize, I talked about all the work we're thinking of doing on the shader and the rendering pipeline. So it kind of makes sense to work on anything graphic, which is depending on shaders when that work is in a more advanced stage. But there's a few things we could do for PBRs potentially, this year or beginning of next. And this could be, for example, including more properties in the PBR definitions that we use. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Same as for Communicator. We're probably going to look, if most likely not this year. This year roadmaps are pretty jammed for Communicator, but we could start looking at what it involves to expand the definition of PBRs. There's also the Open PBR standard. That's something we are kind of we're looking at, seeing if it makes sense for us to maybe have a closer look in the future.
Great, thank you, Marco. A couple of questions here about 3D PDFs. I'll just combine them. What performance enhancements and new functions will be introduced in 3D PDF, and are there any plans to add new features such as Cube View Tool and HPS to 3D PDF?
So usually when we introduce any performance improvements, as much as we can, we will try to introduce them as in both. Sometimes, depending on the technology or what we're doing, they could happen first in 3DF, and then I'm talking about the latest version, of course, of 3DF, the current version usually. So yeah, I can't say now exactly which ones. The team still has to kind of refine, with more detail the project and see which one will apply. And the same is for new functionalities. Usually we try to have them available in both, so in HPS and the latest version of 3DF. So far I can't give a clear answer right now. We have, or a very not clear, a definite answer. So we have the public roadmap pages. So as we go on, we'll keep them up to date, and if there's any discrepancy between the two, it'll be on those pages.
Great, thank you. We had another question just come in. It says, we only have a license for the Hoops Communicator. After merging 3 visualization packages into Hoops Visualize, would we have to purchase the Hoops Visualize in order to use the Communicator?
So no contract changes need to be made, and they are still 2 separate products just under the brand of Hoops Visualize. And so if you are just using one, there is a kind of a uptick in cost if you're now using two of those. So unfortunately, you don't get it for free, but we'd be happy to talk to you about something that would work for you.
Thanks, Jonathan. On that same vein, there was a more general question of what are the benefits for developers with the product consolidation?
Well, it's the first step in getting these products closer together. So I did mention a few different things that we are working on. So data between all of our different products, that's going to bring them closer together. But right now it's a rebranding exercise. Marco talked about unified shaders. So we are trying to bring our products closer together. That's always a focus of ours.
You got another question here. Are you planning to support animations in GITFX Export?
So not for now. So currently, so for this year at least, for the current roadmap, the focus is on those attributes, those properties I listed. So Draco compression and wireframe import and export and phase attributes. I don't think I recall many requests for GLTF animations, but please log a feature request if it's not there. We'll evaluate it and see.
Great. A couple of AI questions here. For the Hoop Summit, there was a mention of an AI toolkit. Can you give us a little bit more details? And also, what are the plans around Gen AI?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. We will be launching like a preview of our AI toolkit. It will be focused mainly on data and being able to provide access to that data for AI algorithms, but packaging it in a unique way. So we do have encoders that are specific for this space and wrappers for Python, demos around we're focusing on feature recognition and use of that. And so we encourage you to come and take a look and to demo it yourself. And then plans around generative AI. And so we already support this. We're a toolkit provider. That's our core. And we try to enable a variety of different workflows. And so generative AI can take just like AI as well, can take just a host of different directions you can go in. So we try to enable people who are using generative AI instead of creating the algorithms themselves. And it's particularly around data. That is really one of the core things. It's around visualization as well and visualizing the different steps as you iterate using your algorithms. We're not supplying the algorithms. We also provide a lot of other supporting technology that assists with that. So it could be our solvers. So you need a direction to go in order to iterate and improve upon design. So we have a number of simulation tools as well that you can plug in to your products. But there's no plans right now to create a general purpose generative AI tool, but we have all of the building blocks that allow you to do that. A good example is NTOP. In this space, we provide them data translators and simulation analysis tools as part of their product that is very focused on generative AI.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It looks like, let me double check here, we've covered all of the questions for now. Thank you all again for joining us on this webinar. Let me go back to that. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. For technical and product questions, please direct them to Marco Salino. And for any sales-related questions, please reach out to your respective regional contact, either Kevin Schofield or Mary O'Connell. And that concludes today's presentation. We hope you found it helpful and informative.